designer of Pop It Ups dies for Elizabeth Craft Designs, and today I'll be teaching a tutorial on this. Embossing and brayer inking wafer-thin dies. For this technique, you're going to want wafer-thin dies that can nest together. So you can see I've got 3 choices here. I'm going to try them all. They are all from my Pop It Ups collection from Elizabeth Craft Designs. Whatever brand inks you've got are probably going to work. I'm using some dye-based inks, and I've chosen 2 colors that are similar, but one is darker than the other. My friend Jen Dove first told me about Hammermill Color Copy Digital Cover cardstock. She loves it for coloring with her Copics. I like it for this technique, but honestly, probably any white cardstock would work. Okay, step 1 is I am going to color this cardstock, my lighter color ink, and I'm doing that with a brayer. So I'm just going to ink up my brayer, roll that right across that piece of cardstock, and you know, the brayer marks are just going to fade out, so it's not really a problem that you're seeing them right now. They will fade out. And then I'm going to do the same thing actually with the back of the cardstock, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. You can do this technique in probably any of your major die cutting machines. You just might have to figure out what the sandwich is for embossing a wafer-thin die. So on a Sizzix Big Shot, that means you go down to tab 1 on your flip tab platform. What goes on top of that is going to be the impressions and the silicone rubber pad as a set. Those are linked in the supply list below if you need a set. Then you put your paper on it, and then we're going to put the dies. Now the dies are actually going to go blade side up. So all we're trying to do here is emboss the shape of those dies down into that pink cardstock. So you can see the blades are face up. Then what goes on top of that is just a regular cutting pad, and then you just roll that right through the machine. Now when that comes out, since we've used the silicone and impressions and the dies were not blade side down, all it did is basically press the shape of those dies right down into that cardstock. And what's going to make that pattern really come out now is the use of your second slightly darker ink color. So let me get that out. I'm going to use a red, and I'm going to get back on my brayer. I'm not cleaning the brayer because I'm going a little bit darker with the color, so that'll save me having to clean in between every time. And then I'm just going to roll that darker color over the top. And so what that'll do is it'll bring out all of that basically embossed or debossed, however you want to think of it, die shapes. And then what's kind of cool is that you can then cut the shape out using the larger of the nested dies. So I'm going to take the larger heart now. I've got to switch my sandwich in the Big Shot to a cutting sandwich. So I'm going with a magnetic platform and then a cutting pad. Then I put my die. This time it'll go blade side down. It'll nest right down into that groove. I'm going to use my little small cutting pad on top. It wouldn't matter. I just like to use it because then I don't have to roll all the way through a big one. And then what that's going to do is it'll cut out that shape, and a little bit of that lighter pink will still be showing on the outside. And then you've still got all that cool pattern. But wait, there's more. This is why we added the pink to the back of the piece, because after you've cut it out, you can brayer the back of it and get a completely different looks, because you basically got embossed on one side, debossed on the other. You can kind of choose which side of the piece you think is going to look best on your project. Okay, I cleaned my brayer and my mat so I can switch colors, and this time I'm going to use some teal colors. I've done the lighter color, I've brayered both sides of the piece. I've got back into my embossing sandwich into the Big Shot, and I'm putting this time my 2 little nested Lorna label dies, and that smaller one is actually a stitching die. But for this first step, it doesn't matter that it's a stitching die because I've got it blade side up, and I'm really just trying to press the shape of those dies down into that cardstock. So once again, cutting pad on top, roll that right through the machine. Okay, when it comes out, I'm going to get my darker color, brayer it up. Now you got to be a little careful when you have big wide open things like this, because see what happens is the first time you go through the brayer, it picks up the shape. So if I just kept going back and forth, you'd see what would happen. I would get that shape transferred across my piece. So you got to be more disciplined when you have big open shapes like this and ink in between each brayer roll so that you don't get that transfer of the shape. So here's what it's going to look like when you nest together just 2 label shapes. Now I'm going to switch to my cutting sandwich, so my magnetic platform with a cutting pad. I'll go ahead and put my larger die, it'll nest right into that groove. And since that smaller die is a stitching die, I can use it. I can just go ahead and put it in there. It'll add some cool stitch marks down into that second groove. So it's not going to cut through because it is a stitching die. I'll use my small cutting pad, roll that right through the machine. So the larger die is the one that did the cutting, so it cut through and left a little bit of that lighter color on the outside of the piece. And the smaller die is the stitching die, so it just put those little stitch marks down into that groove. So that's a fun look, and then if you flip it over and use the darker color on the back side, you'll get the opposite version of that 2-tone label. And what's kind of nice too is that the stitch marks, which were pressed through from the other side, they will start to resist the ink a little bit. So you'll actually still see the stitch marks. You'll see them showing up as a lighter color. And then that's how it looks on the other side. So once again, you choose which side you think looks best on the project. Okay, one more option here. I'm going to use the 2 nested stars from the Star Accordion. I've already brayered my lighter tan color onto both sides of a piece of the white cardstock. I've got my embossing sandwich in, and I am rolling through with the blade side up. So it's just going to press those 2 stars right down into that cardstock. What's going to make the pattern show up the best is, of course, using the darker color. So I'm going to ink up the darker brown on the brayer. I'm going to roll that across. I'm going to be disciplined about making sure that I add more ink in between each pass so that I don't just keep transferring that star shape. And now I've got that cool little 2-tone brown star. Okay, time to switch my sandwich in the Big Shot. I want to go to my cutting sandwich. So that's magnetic platform and my cutting pad on the bottom. And then I'll use the large star to cut out the piece. Now the reason that inner star looks like that it has all those little spokes, is because when you cut it with the blade side down, it actually scores it for folding so that you can turn it into a 3D barn star. Now this piece has not been scored for me by the die because I did the die upside down with the blade side up. Nonetheless, it's still pretty easy to do the folding just by hand, simply by folding the star through the middle so that the sides match up. And you have to keep doing that. You do that 5 times because you've got 5 spokes of the star. So you just choose one of your big spokes, line up the other 2 spokes so they're even on the other side, and then just give it a good press. So basically just going around and working all of those long folds. Now once you have all 5 of those long folds, then what you want to do is train this to be a barn star. So that means you fold up the middle of one of the big spokes and then bring that little fold over to its neighbor. So let's do that again. Pinch the mountain, bring it over to its neighbor, and then let go. Okay, let's go to the next one. Pinch the mountain, bring it over to its neighbor, give it a good squeeze, and let go. And then just keep going all the way around the barn star that way. So basically what you're doing is training it to be an accordion, really. The tall outer spokes are going to be mountain folds, and then in between each one is going to be a valley. And once you've worked them all, you can kind of squish it all together, and it will just make that little barn star kind of look where you've got the little mountains around the spokes. Now you can attach it to the project that way. I often will use kind of a little pop dot in the middle and then maybe a thin line of glue around the outside. But I also want to show you how you can make this be a thinner version of the barn star, actually more like a starfish. And in that case, you need some scissors and you're going to snip up the small folds, so the ones that are in between each mountain. And usually I kind of stop where the color change is. Just go up a little bit. You don't have to go all the way up to the center. Just go up a little bit, all 5 of those folds. Now what you're going to do is turn the star over, and then on each one of your big long spokes, you're going to, where that cut is, you're going to fold to the middle. So it's going to basically be kind of like you're making a paper airplane. So see, I'm going to take that triangle and fold it over until it comes to the middle. Okay, and I should have extended my cuts because I see I did a sloppy job on that first one. I didn't get all the way to the middle. So if you can't easily fold all the way to the middle, it just means that your cuts aren't long enough. So then you just need to take the scissors and lengthen the cut just a little bit, and then you'll be able to fold it all the way to the middle. So it does look nicer if you do a good job with that. So I'll probably go around and fix that other spoke in just a second. But I'm just going to go right around my star doing that little kind of paper airplane fold. Once again, I didn't cut far enough, so let me extend that cut. And then just fold it in little triangles all the way around on each of the spokes. What's nice about that technique too is you have those little flat areas to help you adhere it to the project. But then you can go back to the front side and just kind of work all the little mountains and get it back up into a 3D star. But you can see it's kind of a thinner version of the barn star, or really much more like a starfish. Now, while I could certainly use the pieces that I made today on the pop-up dies that they come with, I can also just use them on flat card fronts. And this first idea is such a quick and easy card. I just took that 2-tone little label that I just made, add a little die-cut word hello and a heart button, some washi tape, pattern paper, front of a card. I am done. I'm telling you, quick, easy 5-minute card. For the heart card, I did a few extra little things. I pounced some Versamark ink over the heart itself and embossed it with clear powder so that it would have that sheen to it. And I had also used this cute little monkey stamp. It was a gift from my design team member, Raquel Mason, and so I fussy cut that out and colored it up, and then stamped a little love you greeting. Now there's sort of glitter lines around the border between the white and the pattern paper. Those are a great way to just add a little sparkle really, really quickly. So similar to what I did to the heart, I also did that to the starfish, where I pounced it with a little watermark ink and then added some embossing powder to it to give it that mottled texture. I also added some glitter dots to highlight the starfish. And then there's some cork, it's inked on the edges, there's this little net and these seashells. I just had those in my stash. I actually don't know where they came from. And a little thinking of you peel off sticker at the bottom. A supply list and a link to a blog post are in the About section below this video. If you're interested in checking out the dies, you can go to ecraftdesigns.com. I'd love it if you are a Facebook user, if you'd like my Facebook page, Karen Burniston Designer. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can always find more pop-up ideas on my blog, karenburniston.com. Thanks for watching.